Yeah,
To get to the full screen thing. Okay,
there
so
you
here we
go.
are. Yeah, so hi, I'm Leon Porter, and I actually have only been a Citizens Climate Lobby member since September. My partner and I moved here to Ithaca from Portland, Oregon in August, partly as climate refugees because the wildfire smoke is getting so extreme out there and the heat waves and everything. Um, anyway, so once I moved here, I started volunteering with Citizens Climate Lobby and became the TICP liaison. So I'm going to tell you about Citizens Climate Lobby and what we've been up to. So for our agenda for this meeting, for this presentation, I'd just like to tell you what Citizens Climate Lobby is and what it does and what climate solution we support, and then just what we've been working on in the past year or two. So Citizens Climate Lobby it's a grassroots volunteer-run advocacy organization. We have been rapidly expanding. We started with one chapter in 2007, and now we have over 590 chapters internationally, on every continent except Antarctica. And so these chapters, they adapt to the local circumstances politically and culturally that they are in. But I will be talking primarily about what the United States Citizens Climate Lobby has been up to, and also what our chapter has been up to. So in the United States, each chapter uses these 5 levels of political will. So generally speaking, there is one chapter per congressional district, and each chapter focuses, first of all, on lobbying Congress, and we build relationships with our congressional representative, whoever it is, and we meet with them and engage with them and train our members how to do that. And we also work a lot on media relations. This means writing a lot of letters to the editors and op-eds and meeting with editorial boards and working to put stories in all forms of media. We do grassroots outreach, which often involves giving presentations like this, and also training people not only about climate change, but also on citizen advocacy and how to be politically effective. Grass tops engagement means building connections with local community leaders and non-governmental organizations, and teaching them about our proposed solutions, and trying to get their support. And then finally, the 5th lever, which you'd find, of course, in any organization, is group development. We have to grow all these local chapters and make them effective at doing these other 4 activities. So I'd like to talk just briefly about Citizens Climate Lobby's core values, because these are actually really important to me. Some of them were very important to me and made me want to join Citizens Climate Lobby specifically. So we primarily are focused on a national carbon fee and dividend, which I'll talk about more later, as the main impact to climate change. We do understand that it's not an adequate solution on its own. It's not a panacea by itself. And we do support other climate solutions as well, but this is our primary focus. We're not we do not protest against other solutions. We're into being inclusive and supportive of everyone, basically. And we approach people with gratitude and respect. We listen to other people's opinions, and we try to find common values and build consensus. And this is important to me personally because I was previously in Portland, I was in an activist group that was much more divisive. I mean, it had much more of an us versus them mentality. And while it was effective, I feel more comfortable, you know, with a group that really will listen to everybody, regardless of their opinions, and engage with everybody. And, you know, the climate is an issue that affects everyone. And we are really working for the common interest. And so we really need to connect with everyone. And we really try to do our research. We solicit opposing opinions and like conflicting data and refine our solutions based on, you know, based on that new information. And we rely a lot on volunteers, trust volunteers to make important decisions, which is why I'm able to give you this presentation, even though I've only been a group member for like 6 months. But yes, we are not totally a top-down organization. The members have a lot of control. And this is especially important, is that we're nonpartisan. We're open to everyone across the political spectrum who's serious about solving climate change. And we really try to engage with Republicans as well as Democrats. And I think that's part of what makes the group more effective, because to get stuff through Congress, we need Republican support as well as Democratic support, at least some. And we also try to promote diversity and empower everyone, especially people who have not been heard. Okay, so here's some members of our local group. We have 425 members. Our boundaries are the New York 23 district. And as you know, the new district boundaries are undetermined. The proposed boundaries were just thrown out in court a couple of days ago. And so it's completely unclear what the new congressional district boundaries are going to be at this point. But we are planning to keep our same chapter boundaries regardless, which means that we will probably be working with people from 2 different congressional districts. So anyway, we will see what happens with that. Okay, so now we'll talk about what makes a good climate solution and why our group supports the solution that we do. We need a solution that can drive large-scale change quickly, because you know, climate change is a huge problem, and we need big solutions that can work fast enough to make a difference. We need a solution that will not disproportionately impact people of lower incomes. In fact, it should preferably benefit people with lower incomes more. And it should be healthy not only for the planet, but also for the economy. We want a solution that will help create jobs and keep the economy strong while also promoting environmental health. We want a solution that has enough durable popular support that it won't just change with the next change in political leadership. And finally, we need a solution that will give people a lot of choice. We just want to give people incentives to make climate smart choices without dictating exactly what choices they should make. And this will help not only make the solution more popular if it's less controlling, but will also hopefully make it more efficient. Okay, so the solution that we have come across, that we've come up with for this, is a carbon fee and dividend. So this can be implemented in a number of different ways, and there are a number of different bills before Congress, and different ways this has been done in other nations. But basically, you charge a fee on fossil fuels at the source, usually, like where they're mined or at the refineries, and then the fee starts low and then it gradually gets larger each year. So that gives the economy a chance to adapt. It gives people a chance to adjust their behaviors to the fee. And it gives people growing financial incentives to use less fossil fuels, while leaving them the freedom to decide how to do that best in their individual circumstances. And so then this money goes to the government, and then it is directly given back to households as a dividend. And giving the money back makes the policy more fair and will hopefully make it more popular. And people will come out ahead. Most people of middle or lower incomes will come out ahead under this policy, and everyone has the opportunity to at least more or less break even by reducing their fossil fuel use. Okay, so one of the major bills that supports the solution is the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is currently before Congress. And it's just one of 5 different similar bills with carbon fees. And 4 of the 5 bills have dividends, but this bill has the most support. It's the most likely to pass. And so, this is the one that we're focused on. It has 96 sponsoring congressional representatives on both sides, and both Democrats and Republicans. And this bill also, if it does not pass as such, it could also get incorporated into the budget reconciliation. So even if this bill does not pass on its own, it is possible that it will, that provisions from it or the basic idea of it will get passed in budget reconciliation. So anyway, I'd like to talk about the specifics of this particular bill a little bit. Okay, so it imposes a fee on the carbon content of fossil fuels and on carbon-intensive materials whose production releases greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So it would charge a fee not just on fossil fuels, but on materials like glass and paper and iron and steel and chemicals. It's imposed on the producers or importers of the fuels or carbon-intensive products, and it starts out at a rate of $15 per metric ton of carbon dioxide emissions or equivalent from other greenhouse gases, and that amount increases by $10 each year, and it can be adjusted depending on inflation and on progress in reducing emissions. There are exceptions for fuels used in agriculture and in the military, and also for fuels used for non-emitting purposes. Credits are given for carbon capture and sequestration. And there are also border adjustments, which are important. Those are fees on imported fuels or imported products. And the border adjustments are important for stopping what's called leakage, which would be just the shifting of carbon emissions outside the US border. Anyway, the net revenue from the fee goes into a carbon dividend trust fund, which by law could only be used for dividend payments and administrative expenses. And then the dividends are dispersed monthly to all US citizens and legal residents. 1 share goes to every adult, a half a share to every child. Okay, so this bill, this graph is showing how the bill would reduce emissions. So these green circles here show how much emissions have to go down legally. I mean, how much they're required to go down under the bill. These are the emissions targets. So if the actual carbon emissions don't go down as quickly as this, then the carbon fee will increase to make sure that we're meeting those targets. And so you can see that the actual emissions reductions aren't required to start for a few years. But this green dotted line shows a projection from an environmental economics think tank, Resources for the Future. And they believe that the emissions will actually start going down immediately because businesses will want to adjust quickly. They'll start making adjustments right away. Okay, so this bill will help businesses to find the most cost-effective ways to lower carbon emissions. And it works better than a regulatory approach because if you have like fixed regulations, you'd need a lot of regulations to achieve the same carbon emission reductions. And regulations are, they have the drawback that they're rigid. They don't account for individual circumstances. They don't easily reward innovative ways or new strategies for reducing carbon emissions. So this bill, because it allows more flexibility than regulations, it is likely to cost a lot less money to the economy and potentially to be more effective in the long run by promoting innovative solutions that we might not have even thought of yet. Okay, and this bill should create a lot of new jobs, clean energy jobs, obviously, in order to reduce emissions. There's going to have to be a lot of new infrastructure built, and there will be a lot of new jobs in energy efficiency and in clean energy. So it's estimated that investing in clean energy will create approximately 3 times as many jobs as investing in fossil fuels. And the net climate and health benefits of this carbon tax idea are estimated at $800 billion each year. Whereas if we fail to take climate actions, economists estimate that global wealth could fall by 25% by the year 2100, with increasing numbers of Americans falling into poverty. The bill will also improve health. It'll save 4.5 million lives over the next 50 years just by providing cleaner air. Poor air quality is responsible for as many as 1 in 10 American deaths per day, and also responsible for a whole lot of illness. And the policy will prevent 3.5 million hospital visits over the next 50 years and restore about 300 million workdays that would otherwise be lost because of air pollution and heat. Yes, and it will give everyone these dividends. So about 80% of Americans are expected to do fine under the policy, either come out ahead. About 60% will actually come out ahead, and about 20% more will not come out far behind. So most people will benefit from this policy. Here is a result specifically for the New York District 23. This graph is from a study specifically for New York District 23. About 91% of the residents are expected to either come out ahead or only suffer a minor loss. This first column shows all households here in the graph. So 74% in our congressional district will actually come out ahead. Another 17% will only have a minor loss. These other 5 columns are consumption quintiles. So this column here is the 20% of residents, of 20% of households with the lowest consumption of goods, lowest spending on, basically the lowest spending on goods each year. So 98% of those households will come out ahead. These are generally the lowest income households who have the lowest consumption. And even in the 4th quintile, most people will come out ahead of consumption. And even in the very highest quintile, the majority of people in the 20% with the highest consumption will at least not do much worse than breaking even. So 67% will not come out significantly behind under it even among those who consume the most. So in Tompkins County, the dividend, as it's set up in this act, would be expected to bring in about $20 million in the first year. That amount will grow quite a lot over the next several years because the carbon fee increases each year to hit the targets. After about 10 years, it'll more or less stabilize and start going down a little bit because, with less carbon being emitted, there won't be as much to impose the fee on. So anyway, in the first year, the average household in Tompkins County would get a net benefit of $15 a month. The energy costs would increase by about $29 a month, but the same family would get a dividend of $44 a month, so they'd come out ahead. Now, as for the chances of this passing, so it could pass in this bill. Alternatively, it may pass in the reconciliation bill. If you're not aware, the reconciliation bill is not dead. It has been rekindled. The negotiations are now ongoing. They kind of took a break from it for a few months, but now they're back into it. And Senator Manchin, who is the main stumbling block, as I'm sure you know, has said that he is open to including climate legislation in some kind of stripped down reconciliation bill. So if this does pass, it will probably pass within the next several months. It'll probably have to pass before the congressional elections this year. Okay, so this is what our group has been doing. This is what Citizens Climate Lobby has been doing with the carbon fee and dividend. We've been mobilizing lots and lots of phone calls and emails, been phone banking, publishing thousands of op-eds and letters to the editors, getting earned news coverage, and holding lots of meetings with members of Congress and staff. And carbon fee and dividend is gaining support. Over 100 cities around the country have endorsed a carbon fee and dividend policy, and dozens of major organizations and leaders have signaled their support for this type of legislation. Now, although the carbon fee and dividend has been our main focus, we also have had secondary asks. So I know we're short on time, so I won't go into these at great length, but we did help to lobby for and get passed several bills that boost carbon capture technologies and that fund research and development of grid scale energy storage technologies that are needed for solar and wind powers, and that will help our nation's fisheries adapt to climate change. These were all passed either inside the omnibus bill in 2020 or the bipartisan infrastructure bill last year. And so, yeah, okay. And then our chapter specifically here has published a bunch of, we've also been part of this whole process. We've been lobbying with Senators Gillibrand and Schumer and Representative Reed. We've been doing presentations and meetings and contacting legislators, publishing op-eds, and we have persuaded several businesses to endorse the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act this past year. A lot of what we've been doing actually has been getting endorsements for the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So we now have actually 57 formal endorsements within the New York 23rd District, including these 20 in Tompkins County, including TICP. And if you or your organization would also like to formally endorse the EICDA, or just endorse the idea of a carbon fee and dividend, that would be great. And please let me know if you are interested in doing that. So we just have a few new projects for 2022. So the first one is a local project, which is just our chapter is sending a climate survey to candidates in the 2022 congressional primaries. Of course, this has been somewhat disrupted because we now don't know what the boundaries are for the districts, and so that makes it unclear who's actually going to be running. And but in any case, we've got a climate survey, and a big purpose of this survey, it's not just to find out where candidates stand, it's also to educate the candidates and whoever else reads the survey and their answers. It's to educate them about the idea of a carbon fee and dividend and just get them to look into it and think about it. On a state level, we are involved in commenting on the Climate Action Council's draft scoping plan, and we're requesting a carbon fee and dividend. Now, of course, doing this is not, a carbon fee and dividend is not really as effective on a state level as on a national level. You can't do a, the same kind of border adjustment. You can't have tariffs on, on goods that are coming in from out of state, but you can do, on a state level, it is possible to do a sales tax on fuels and on carbon intensive products and on fossil fuel generated electricity that's sold in the state. So that would provide much the same benefit. And the dividend would not necessarily have to be a monthly dividend. I mean, it could be some kind of, annual tax rebate. So there are different options on the state level, but the same basic principle can be followed. And then we have a national and international campaign to stand with Ukraine by urging a rapid transition to clean energy to reduce demand for Russian fossil fuels. Of course, the transition to clean energy is going to take a long time, but it'll take years. But this whole situation with Ukraine does show that there are long-term costs of depending on fossil fuels from unfriendly foreign nations, and reducing that dependence, especially Europe's dependence on that, may help to reduce Russia's economic capacity for future military aggression. So anyway, if you'd like to learn more, you can join one of our info sessions, or here's a website with more about the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So, okay. Do we have time for any questions, Peter? Your mic's turned off.
Yeah, that's the that's the COVID fog operating. Martha, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks very much, Leon. I think first off, you should put the word former on that slide about endorsements. I'm the former legislature chair. I've retired, so anyway, okay. Yeah, and I would urge you to try to take this to the new legislature. They have a lot of new members who probably haven't heard about this. There is an impending issue that I always thought that might be the real impetus for federal action, which is the impending European Union tariff that's supposed to, I believe, go into effect January 2023. That any imports into the EU from countries that don't have their own carbon price are going to be charged a tariff or fee. And I thought that would always be an important argument at the federal level. Is that still part of your pitch?
I have not looked into that, so I don't know. But yes, that the fee, if we have a carbon fee with a border adjustment, I'm not sure if this is what you're asking exactly, but it would take into account whether other nations also have their own fees. So we wouldn't do a carbon border adjustment to the same degree on a nation that already had its own carbon fee.
Right. No, I'm really, talking about flipping the script. The EU is about to impose its border protections And if we don't pass our own carbon price, our exports to the EU are going to be at a disadvantage. So that always seemed to me like a really great argument with federal officials. And I would love to see that, in a big part of your, and we're not federal officials, but I hope that CCL is using that argument in Washington.
Okay, that's a great point, and I'm going to forward that to them because I have not actually seen CCL using that argument. So that's excellent. Thank you.
Which means it has to pass in this session of Congress, or else we're at that kind of a disadvantage. All right, thanks so much, Leon.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
Okay, so we are running out of time, but Brian,
Peter,
you have your hand
sorry
up.
to bust in. This is Sarah Carson. I'm just on the phone. I have a question. I just want to put my name in the line. I don't know how else to raise my hand.
Yeah, sure. Who's this?
Sarah at Cornell.
Oh, hey. Well, okay, let's.
But put me in line behind everything else, please.
Yeah, I will. So, Brian.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I was talking briefly with the national lobbyists for the geothermal systems organizations yesterday, and every day brings new revelations. I mean, there's a bit of hope about Build Back Better and reconciliation, and the next day it's crushed. And but I think for solar and geothermal, they're being pushed by business associations that are not the climate activists, although they're climate friendly people. And Representative Reed has supported both solar and geothermal in the past. So there is Republican support for that. And, but I think he was pretty, it said that anything really comprehensive, he didn't hold out much hope for, something beyond this tweaking of extending the credits and tax credits of these kind of organizations, this kind of industry. So I think there is something that's going to come out of it, but it may not be all that we hope for.
The usual.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get something out of it, though. Let's see. So, Sarah, why don't you go ahead, because we are very close at time.
There's also a question in the chat from Kareem.
Yeah, I know. I just want to give Sarah a chance.
Okay.
Yep. My question is more around messaging. I've seen lots of articles popping up recently about the fossil fuel industry being in support of some sort of carbon pricing scheme, and I think mine and a lot of other people's knee-jerk reaction is, well, if they're for it, I'm against it, right? Or what are we missing? Like, what's the hidden agenda? Do you have in your talking points, just a way to address that, or also your thoughts of, is there some sort of hidden agenda or some sort of modification to an overall scheme that the fossil fuel industry might be pushing for, just some sort of risk to watch for in a some sort of partnership with them in advancing this policy that otherwise seems to be sort of the baseline thing we need to get done.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question. And yeah, I saw that the American Petroleum Institute just like 2 days ago decided to, I think it was just 2 days ago, decided to endorse a carbon fee and dividend. And I understand why that might arouse suspicions, but I don't think that there's a hidden agenda. I think that they are straightforwardly concerned with, maximizing their profits, as corporations tend to be. I think that what's going on is that they see that they are going to be facing climate regulations one way or another. They're seeing that the momentum is growing to take much stronger action on climate. and they recognize that among the options for taking strong action on climate, that a carbon fee and dividend will not impact their profits as much as other possible solutions might, because it's predictable for them. They're like, okay, there's going to be this fee. It's going to be increasing gradually each year, but we will be able to plan for it because we'll know what's going to be happening with it years down the road. And the issue with regulations, using regulations, is that not only do they tend to be really, much more complicated and harder for businesses to adjust to, but also they're much less predictable. Like if you don't know, what kinds of zillions of new regulations are going to be coming at you as a corporation, then you can't plan and your costs are higher. So yeah, they're just looking to lower costs. They are interested in this, I'm sure, purely out of self-interest, but that doesn't mean that it's not an effective climate solution. It just means that it's an effective climate solution that will not hit their bottom lines quite as badly. And I think it's a positive for a climate solution to have support from these fossil fuel industries, because that way the Republicans and whoever whoever these industries are supporting will be more likely to pass it. I mean, we need support from unlikely partners in order to get something to pass.
I think one of the key factors here is when you put your finger on earlier, Leon, which is the predictability, be able to project what the costs are actually going to be. Just speaking as an historian, there's a very similar situation at the turn of the 20th century with railroad regulation. The actual federal railroad regulation that eventually was put in place was supported by railroad companies because they were looking at a patchwork of state railroad regulations that would have really inhibited their ability to operate across state lines in any kind of a rational way. So they got behind the national regulation, and it turned out to be one of the great reforms of the progressive movement, but in part because the railroad industry got behind it, because they saw the other alternatives were really going to inhibit their ability to move forward. So that's one of the parallels I see here. All right, well, we have run out of time, but is there some way you could just quickly, Leon, very succinctly address the question that Kareem has raised in chat about the consensus or lack of consensus in the environmental movement about carbon?
Yeah, I will just say that so Kareem raised the point that we need a large coalition to get anything passed. And well, that is exactly what Citizens Climate Lobby is all about. Completely all about is getting the largest possible coalition of people, from all walks of life and across the political spectrum, and corporations too, to support this solution. And so we have within Citizens Climate Lobby, we have special groups for progressives, we have special groups for Republicans and conservatives, and we have training on how to do outreach to people on different parts of the political spectrum. And there are more conservatives and Republicans than you might think who are concerned about climate change, but are, leery about some of the possible solutions that are being offered. And many of them find carbon fee and dividend more attractive because it's more business friendly.
Great. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there, but thanks so much, Leon, for updating us on this issue. And I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy weekend. And again, if you haven't, if you qualify and you haven't gotten that second booster, get it. You might just end up getting infected the way I did, but it's gonna make a real difference in terms of severity. So, and this infection is all over Tompkins County right now. So I just want to make sure you all do as much as possible to stay safe and have a great weekend. So see you until next time.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.